He was easily 6'5" and 250 pounds, and I'm 5'11", 165 pounds, and wearing Crocs. I don't see how I was a threat. Story 1. I got into a fight with this guy in school because in the lunch line I was standing behind him. He said it was because he didn't like people being behind him. Story 2. My buddy and I were fishing, and a guy and his friend across the creek caught a fish. They were taking it off the hook, and my buddy said, "Damn, a fish just swam right by me." The guy who caught the fish looked at us angry and said, "What did you just say?" My buddy said, "What?" The guy repeated himself louder and more aggressively this time. My buddy just said, "I said I saw a fish." And the guy didn't even respond, just looked down and kept messing with his fish. Story 3. I've been going to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym for 2 years now and have built a good reputation with everyone there. We have a good time. One week, a new black belt came into the gym whom we had never met before. My friends and I were talking in the corner of the mat. The new black belt came up to us and said, "It's customary to introduce yourself and shake hands with any black belt on the mat." Then he just walked away. My friends and I all looked at each other in surprise. Story 4. I was sitting in a restaurant parking lot waiting for a friend. A large man approached with his dog and asked me why I was looking at him. I hadn't even noticed him until he started talking to me. Story 5. This woman was leaning up against my car as I was passing by her while walking my dog. I asked her very politely not to lean on my car, and her boyfriend said, "Yo, you talk to me if you have a problem." I have literally never seen these people in my life. Plus, she is an adult. She can speak. Story 6. I don't know if this applies here, but I had a coworker who wouldn't eat pepperoni pizza because the whole pepperoni reminded him of a penis, and of course he was super straight. Edit. He also refused to eat pho because his uncle died in Vietnam. Story 7. Me and my brothers were playing Settlers of Catan. Way too much wheat. Everyone got like 5 cards worth. I cut off my brother's farm, the largest one, to establish a normal amount of wheat. He legitimately wants to go out to the alley to fight. There were girlfriends around, so maybe that brought it on. He is a bit over-aggressive and always wants to prove he's the toughest, which is weird because no one cares and I'm the family's hippie son, so picking a fight with me isn't going to happen unless I'm in some fatal danger situation. It was just a Chad. I've got big balls if you don't thing, because we all know I'm not going to hit the alley with family over a couple of wheat cards. Everyone kind of laughed it off, which made him more mad. Funniest thing, he's not a kid. Tried to fist fight over wheat. Didn't even realize that less wheat in play makes his farm worth more. Story 8. I used to travel a lot for work. I became numb to all the Transportation Security Administration line nonsense and would automatically become a shoeless, beltless, laptops in one bin, small items in another bin zombie. Well, it doesn't matter what airport you go to. It's pretty much all the same. It goes from chaos to a bottleneck to a few open scanners, then you're off to your gate. I was wrapping up a week and a half of travel and I was coming home. Late night flight, just ready to hit the bed. While going through the Transportation Security Administration line, I reached over some velour shirt-wearing, sparkly jean-wearing guy to grab a bin. "You trying to cut in front of me?" "Oh, no." Grabbing a bin. This guy then proceeded to make a nice scene about how he's been waiting in line like everyone else. I just kept undoing my shoes and my belt while this guy got so agitated his spray tan started to run. Like, man, come on. I'm trying to get home. I know you have some fist pumping and stuff to do too, but I don't have time for it. We started to funnel through the process. Turns out the guy got the random screening. As he's getting walked off to the side, I'm slipping on my shoes, and I gave him a nice little, "Enjoy your flight." Story 9. Oh geez. Growing up in rural Missouri, pretty much everything is a competition to some people, since machismo is taught to little boys as though it were a required life skill. I've had idiots try to start a fight with me for not wanting to street race them, for not drinking Budweiser, for riding a motorcycle that isn't a Harley, for using big words, for jogging on a hiking trail, for having zero interest in mudding, for knowing how anti-lock brakes work, and just last week for asking, "What kind of dog is that?" The only takeaway is that some people are so insecure or just generally messed up that they imagine threats which they can then confront in order to satisfy that insecurity. Story 10. One time while standing on the Bay Area Rapid Transit platform in Oakland, a man walked up to me and asked me how I was doing. I said, "I'm doing good. How about you?" To which he replied, "I am not trying to talk to any foolish person." I said, "Whatever, dude," and walked away. To this day, I am bewildered at why he came up to me. Also, for those who do not know, Bay Area Rapid Transit is the subway system for the Bay Area. Story 11. I've had tons of people talk trash and want to race to impress their ladies. I drive a half-ton four-door truck. I'm not out here trying to race people. I'm going to get my daughter some apple juice and some chicken nuggets. Sometimes they won't let it go. I play along and rev with them at the red light, and when it turns green, I make my turn and continue to the store. Story 12. Two men came over trying to fight my friends at a pub, thinking we were having a go at them. We were pointing to a TV in the corner of the pub showing the football. I hadn't even seen the talkers. The bartender saw the whole thing and threw them out because apparently Friday night fights was their standard method of operation. Story 13. A really big, heavy, mean, tough-looking dude walked up to me in a bar when I was about 20 or something. I was tall and thin, wearing a muscle shirt. He asked me if a guy with no feet would wear shoes. I said no, probably not. Then he asked why I would wear a muscle shirt if I had no muscles. I said because it was comfortable. That seemed to be an acceptable answer to him. He bought me a drink and never bothered me again. It was weird. Story 14. I and my friends came out of our freshers party and were waiting for an auto to leave. Some guy came up to my friend and said, "Were you talking to, presumably, this guy's girlfriend at the party?" My friend, being clueless, asked, "Who is that?" The guy said, "That's what I thought." After he left, my friend said, "What was he on about?" Story 15. My macho man neighbor confronted my boyfriend for waving goodbye to me. He approached him as he got into the car and asked, "Oi, why are you waving?" True story. Story 16. Machismo landlord from hell. First week of living in his rental, the sewage pipe breaks and is flowing into the basement. The plumber can't come for a week, so that's a whole week where we have to use facilities elsewhere. My boyfriend calls the landlord, on speakerphone, asking if we could get a little taken off this month's rent due to the headache and inconvenience. The landlord immediately responds with, "You think you're a big man? You piece of crap. Let's meet outside and then see how manly you are." My boyfriend spent the next 5 minutes trying to de-escalate to no avail. The pipe was fixed by a plumber who wrapped old carpet around the break with duct tape. We ended up suing the landlord at the end of our stay for our withheld deposit. We won. Story 17. I was quite early for a meeting at someone's house, so I sat in my car about a block away and played a game on my phone. After 5 minutes or so, a guy angrily stomped towards my car, yelling, and went around the back to take photos of my license plate. I rolled down my window, and he was yelling about undercover agents watching his place and calling me a cop. He said he was sending my license plate to some people, and they're gonna find me and do some unspeakable stuff to me. Story 18. I wasn't there, but my aunt and my little cousin were, so I'll share anyway. My uncle and his family were at a mall and were just about to leave when he and another man glanced at each other. They were both about the same size, 6 feet 4 inches and 260 pounds. Both big guys. They stared at each other for 3 to 4 seconds, then started calling each other out in front of their families. They both stepped outside the mall and fought each other in the parking lot. Mind you, these two guys had never met before. The fight was pretty even, and they shook hands afterward. During the fight, my uncle's shirt got ripped, so he had to go back inside shirtless to buy a new one. Story 19. I work in the heart of the city night shift, right across from the casino. I'm 5 feet 11 inches and weigh around 55 kilograms, so I'm pretty small. The number of drunk guys who love to try and mess with me and my work is significant, mainly because of my size and their drunk macho behavior. Story 20. I was driving my side-by-side up a Class 4 road that accesses a chunk of land we own in the forest in a rural area. I came around a bend and there was one of those giant, lifted trucks with the smokestack things on both sides of the cab, for rolling coal, I guess. It was going really slowly and I followed it for a minute or so, I had my phone in my hand and decided to snap a photo since I had heard about these types of trucks, but had never actually seen one. Right as I took the photo, the guy slammed on his brakes, jumped out of the truck, and aggressively said, "Can I help you?" Since he was about 50 feet from my land, I asked, can I help you? He glared at me and said, "Why are you taking a picture of my truck?" I replied, "Because I think it's really cool looking," and he was completely caught off guard and had no idea what to say. So he jumped back in his truck and drove off, not sure why he felt threatened. I weigh about 112 pounds and am a very small woman. Story 21. I was assaulted and had my head injured when I was 15 for looking at a truck as it pulled into a gas station parking lot. They drove in with their high beams on. I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't see them anyway. January 10th, 2000. I hope they see this, because shame on them for beating up a defenseless teenager in the dark. I hope they faced consequences for their actions. Story 22. I was in an Airbnb in a foreign country on a work trip with other coworkers. Long story short, we clogged the toilet. I couldn't find any plungers or anything I could use to fix the issue. We had already had a pretty serious issue with the owner for a situation that was our fault. However, without a working toilet, we had no choice but to call him. We left it at that and continued with our day. Somehow the owner was able to track us down. We were at a hotel visiting other coworkers. I didn't think much of it until I heard he was asking to speak to me specifically. I'm bewildered because I wasn't the one who rented the house or had any idea how he knew my name or why he wanted to speak to me. Anyway, I go downstairs and he's about to blow an artery. He really was losing control. He's screaming in my face like a drill instructor, complaining of this and that, and saying we are lesser than him. The chief executive officer of my company is standing next to me. I begin to weigh the consequences of what would happen if I were to hit him. Would I get fired or jailed in a foreign country? Funny enough, he begins to talk negatively about me, saying I should learn the local language. I calmly respond in his language, my second language at home, so I'm fluent. I decide that hitting him was probably not going to end nicely for me. Keep in mind, he's still yelling in my face for what feels like forever. I knew I wasn't going to hit him, but I also wasn't going to stand there and be horribly disrespected, so I literally turn around and go back in. It ruined the trip for me completely, unfortunately. Still makes me angry, truthfully. Maybe in another life I'll be able to uppercut him. Story 23. I grew up in a town where eye contact was an act of aggression. I can't count the number of times I heard, "What are you looking at? Do you have a problem, fool?" From people I didn't even realize existed until they approached me. Red lights on two-lane roads were the absolute worst for harassment. So thankful I left that rotting place. Story 24. I was walking home from a college Halloween party in Boulder, Colorado. Everyone was either blacked out or nearly there on Halloween. We were stumbling home and heard some guy on a porch calling us cowards for literally no reason. There were 6 of us and 2 of them. I wasn't trying to start a fight, but I wasn't going to let that slide either. So I set it back and kept walking. Within a minute, he and his friend were up in our faces trying to start something. We kept walking since police officers are everywhere, and I didn't want any legal trouble. They followed us all the way to my house, and one of the guys started crying that he was a Marine and a bunch of other nonsense. My older neighbor came out as it was around 3:30 in the morning and told us he had called the police, so they ran. It was strange. I'm glad no one got hurt. Story 25. Some kid in college got mad over a silly prank that somebody else pulled, and when I told him to calm down, he shoved me. Then he got into the Karate Kid stance with all seriousness and asked me to come at him. We used to call him George McFly, and he would fall into a rage. Not going to lie, though, he was a spitting image. Story 26. Had 2 guys at a bar try to fight me and my buddies because my friend said he couldn't work on an oil rig. Not that working on one was bad, just that it wasn't his kind of work. Story 27. Back in high school, I was zoned out, staring off into space in the general direction of this guy I had never spoken to. In the middle of class, he yelled out, "What are you looking at?" When I gave him a confused look, he then said, "We can go right here and right now." Story 28. When I was 16, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and some guy probably my age or a little older walked out of the woods and started yelling at me, telling me to come fight him. I was pretty far from him, and my girlfriend at the time gripped my arm and told me to keep walking with her. He insulted me, my girlfriend, and some other things, but he eventually left. I was so confused. Story 29. I was at a bar with my girlfriend. I left to the cash point down the road to get some cash. A really drunk woman was at the cash point and needed help picking up her card or something she dropped. I picked it up, gave it to her, and got my cash out. She was just standing around chatting. I said, "Are you okay?" "No, my boyfriend is up the road looking for me." "Okay, let's go find your boyfriend." So we find her boyfriend on the way back to the bar, and I get his attention. "Hey, dude, your girlfriend is here, super drunk. Said she was looking for you." "What are you doing with my woman?" "No, dude. She said she was looking for you." "You what? What are you doing with her?" "Relax, man, my girlfriend is in the bar. I was just helping your girlfriend find you." "You being smart with me?" The woman went absolutely silent and kind of just walked off. "Cheers, love. Leave me to deal with what I can only assume you had prior knowledge of, your insane boyfriend." This went on for a couple of minutes back and forth. The guy was really muscular, a few heads higher than me. There was zero competition, and if it ever got physical, I'd have been absolutely destroyed. He seemed like he was on some serious substance rage, so I just walked away from him back to the bar while he was screaming about how he was going to hurt a guy probably just under a foot shorter than him. So I go to the bar, see my girlfriend. Jesus Christ, you never guess what happened. Big muscular dude comes into the bar spoiling for a fight. At this point, I'm like, no chance I'm going to get pounded into the ground in some seedy bar. So in a very unmanly fashion, I just got my girlfriend and said we're going to another bar as soon as possible as I don't fancy eating through a straw. Man, that was just so stupid. People like that will end up hurting someone on a night out.